Are you looking for more out of your life? Do you need ideas on how to start new businesses and how to move forward in your own personal life? Well, guess what? You have come to the right radio show. At You Can Overcome Anything podcast show, you will learn and hear from many people from all walks of life who are sharing their challenges, their stories, the habits, and the mind shifts they had to overcome to become who they are today. On top, you will get a chance to connect and see how you can overcome anything by networking and learning about your next move through this radio show. I present to you our great speakers at You Can Overcome Anything podcast show with your host, Cesar Espino. Hello there and welcome back. It is your friend Cesar Espino and you are at You Can Overcome Anything podcast show. Today I have a special guest. His name is Matt Sweetwood. Hey, Matt.
How you doing, Cesar? Good to be here.
I'm doing great. I'm glad to have you here. Thank you for being on the show.
It's a pleasure to be here. It's
a
beautiful
definitely.
Day.
It is. Definitely it is. Before we dive in, let me kind of introduce you to our audience so they know who you are and they can get a little bit more about you, and then we can dive in. So Matt Sweetwood is the CEO of LUXnow, the online marketplace for luxury autos, homes, and yachts. He is an international known professional speaker, author, and life coach with over 30 years of entrepreneurial experience. Matt has been credited with the reinvention of modern camera store. However, his greatest achievement is having raised 5 successful children to adulthood as a single dad. He is a frequent TV and publication contributor and has the #1 best-selling book, Leader of the Pack. Wow. I want to definitely know more about, your journey there in terms of, raising your kids successfully, right? Before we dive into that, though, I want to take it a little bit back to where are you from and, more about your childhood, if anything.
I don't know if I just finished with my psychologist. I don't know if I can take more of it.
Right. Yeah. I hear you.
Yeah. I'm not gonna talk about my feelings towards my mom or anything like that. We'll try to wait.
Yeah, definitely. All right.
Yeah. So I'm a Jersey kid. I grew up, raised, born, everything happened to me, good and bad, for the first 50 years in New Jersey.
Got you.
Grew up in the suburbs. It's the suburbs of New York. An older brother. We had a family business, and I kind of worked my way through school. I think, when I look back on my childhood, because I talk about this in my book, Leader of the Pack, I think that I was very much a product of, I grew up in the 70s. That's really when, the most definitive times for me. That's 1970s for your audience that is a little confused about the 70s.
Yeah, definitely.
All I want to say is in the 70s, we had the best music there ever was, okay?
Yeah.
Beatles, Eagles, Cesar R. Okay, I can go on, but okay, I digress. For me, the influences of that time were the 2 things that sort of went on in my life is that my parents were first-generation parents, and we're Jewish, and they didn't really care about that. It was not something that was really big on them. First-generation people came here, and they would say, "You're American, and your job is to make money. That's it." Okay. Religion is about taking money from you. It's a waste of time. You're Jewish. Just shut up. Go figure out how to be successful in this country, and everything is going to be good. And they had this sort of misconception about me that I was really smart. So they kept pushing me ahead. And one of the things that they did, because you want to talk a little bit about parenting and a little bit I can tell, is that they pushed me ahead. So they dropped me in school, first grade when I was 5 years old.
Wow.
And so the end result of that was I graduated high school like when I was just turning 16.
Wow.
And 16-year-olds, 16-year-old boys don't mingle well with 18-year-old women and men. So it was a very difficult social journey for me, and that set up a lot of the things that actually went wrong in my life. And a lot of the difficulties is, even though I was theoretically, mentally at the right level to go to college. I went to college, graduate school, got a PhD. I did all of those things, that academically are strong, but ultimately, socially, it was a very, very difficult journey. And there's a real, deep lesson in there for parents, and for myself, with my own children, is that social component, the that inner kind of self-confidence that you get from not just the academic part or success in business or academia, but the social part was crucial. And as a result, which I detail in gory detail in Leader of the Pack, is how I made such huge mistakes in my life and stayed in difficult relationships and ended up hurting my own children and hurting myself and setting myself on a course that basically took me my whole life to recover from. So for me, that's really the defining moments is, how my parents sort of raised me in that perspective. Of course, the end result is, it makes you, in the end, a pretty tough hombre, pretty deep hombre. Leader of the Pack talks about, how spirituality came into my life and how it sort of opened me up and made me a man, and having to raise 5 kids on my own. Because it wasn't just a single dad. I was actually raising them on my own. Mom left, and that turned me into a man. Went from a little Jersey kid to a man. So anyway, that's kind of my childhood and how it.
Yeah, definitely. When you went to go did you knew what you wanted to do? Because I know a lot of times people, they kind of just go and follow the flow, right? Like go to school, get a good education, good grades, and hope that something great comes out of that, right? Was that the same thing with you, or you kind of knew what you wanted to do while going to school?
Unlike my brother, who knew when he went to school that he was going to be a lawyer. That's kind of what he wanted to do.
Yeah.
I was kind of a lonely kid, so because of the reasons that I said, so I just wanted to study girls, but I wasn't very successful with that in college. But to answer your question directly, I went in because my parents were in business. They're like, study business. I went there, and took my first business course. I'm like, this is really stupid. I've been working in business my whole life. I can't pay attention to this. I have a little bit of ADHD. I didn't like any of those. All of those sort of liberal arts subjects kind of, I don't know, I just didn't have the patience for them. And so I kind of flitted around a little bit, like you said, taking a little bit of this, a little bit of that. I eventually ended up sort of taking mathematics courses, and this was a natural ability for me. I was always really good at math. I remember my dad used to show me off because I used to be able to multiply big numbers in my head and stuff like that. But, that's not really what ultimately mathematics is about, some sort of aptitude. So I ended up sort of migrating to mathematics, and that's where I ended up getting my degree, my graduate degree in, is mathematics. And I think it's really, it's sort of funny, you can say this looking back. I think I chose it because I was just naturally good at it and didn't have to do as much work. It was easier. I mean, ultimately, it's really a fantastic thing to study because mathematics teaches you a way to think. It sort of sharpens your mind in analytical thinking. So I certainly don't regret that, and certainly I'm not using differential equations a lot in my, or algebraic topology in my everyday life.
Right.
But, it's that process that you learn. And I think that's a lot of what college is about. It's a growing up experience. It's a socializing experience. It's a honing of the thought process. Because I don't know many people who went to college for X and are doing X.
Oh, yeah, right. Yeah, I can relate to that for sure.
X in life. So, but for me, it was that part was really good because it gave me a very, very powerful thought process, which later on came into life to get me out of the many, many things that I had to overcome.
Yeah, you mentioned something that you kind of were taking it because it was easy, to do, and you felt comfortable to an extent. I want to touch on that from a different connotation. I believe that a lot of times people tend to stay on a comfortable place because they're so uncomfortable to try or do something new that can really benefit them. What is your thought on that?
I think that being uncomfortable for the sake of being uncomfortable because you think it's good isn't necessarily the right reason to do it. So to answer your question, I believe the answer is if you're looking to be uncomfortable to grow and it's something that you need to do, you shouldn't fear it. You should just dig in and do it. It's sort of like doing the dishes, right? The dishes need to get done. I don't know anybody who likes watching the dishes, okay? But you just dig in and you do it. It's uncomfortable. You just get it done because it has to be done because you're going to make something better. Your kitchen's going to look a whole lot better and cleaner and all of that stuff. I know that's a silly metaphor, but that's like that in life. In other words, I'm not going to go take and learn Swahili in college, right? Take a course in Swahili unless there's some reason to do it. And, okay, if I need this for something, or I think I'm going to need it, or it's going to make me grow in a way then you go do it. And that's true in business. It's true in life and everything. So I don't like this sort of make yourself uncomfortable just because you think it's good for your character. Look, I mean, there's lazy people out there that don't like to do anything. And, but I'm just talking about somebody who is achieving to just kind of go and do that. I always liken this to sports figures, right? Greatest basketball player ever, Michael Jordan. I mean, his focus was basketball. Right. He wasn't trying to make himself uncomfortable. He was just trying to get better and better and better and better. Maybe make himself uncomfortable by practicing and working and working. But once again, that's making yourself uncomfortable for a purpose.
Yeah, right.
To practice when you're tired, or practice whenever, or be unrelenting, or all of those things. He's not going, you don't do that in areas because you just can't continually make yourself uncomfortable like that and be successful.
Yeah, definitely, and sometimes you have to be on the uncomfortable side of it to be able to create a bigger impact for yourself down the line, right? And I can see that from that perspective. Now, kind of going back to you going to school and all that stuff. How did you end up being saying, you know what, I'm going to go on my own and becoming my own boss? How was that transition, or did you go into that right after college?
What happened was, for me, it was a situation of, we had a family business. It was a small photographic supply company. And I was the techie. Of course, we didn't call it techie back then. I mean, you were a computer guy, or you were just, you knew stuff. And so I sort of got drawn into the family business when I was in college. So you have to remember, for me, college was 17 years old, 18 years old.
Right.
And I started... I put our first computer system in the early 80s, and programmed it myself. I wrote all the software for it. Wasn't like there was no Windows. That kind of thing did not until later.
Were you doing it on Linux or on DOS or any of that stuff?
I was in Unix, and I was writing in Business Basic and a few things like that. I was a self-taught programmer, which is kind of why I never really in school took computer. It was a waste of time for me. I was already writing commercial systems and it was sort of uninteresting for me. But for me, that sort of drew me in, and then I started, applying myself there. So all through my college and graduate school time, I was actually still going back and working and involved in the business. I was doing both of those kinds of things. So I was actually getting probably a better business education than I was in education in mathematics or, whatever it was I was studying, because, real life, many, many years doing that. And when I left graduate school, I just walked into the business. We were a 4 or 5 person company. And by the time I left that business a few years ago, we were a $100 million company.
Wow.
So we did a lot of right things and a lot of wrong things along the way. And that's kind of, why I think that this particular podcast that I'm on right now is really right on the money, because I've had to overcome so many things along that 30-year journey that it makes for a best-selling book. Yeah,
that's awesome. And so then from there you decided to become open up your own company, LUXnow, which is
LUXnow is a new company. That's my little journey when I finally got myself out of the New York, New Jersey area and came down here to Miami, which is it almost looks like that today. So
that's awesome. So tell me a little bit about the passion or the drive of doing LUXnow.
So for me, when you have a successful exit from a company that you build up, I'm a person who, how do I put this? I'm always searching for success. And I sold my company back in 2015, the end of 2015. And there's some sort of jubilation which when you exit like that, because I'm not a person who was interested in dying in his chair in the business. For me, it's to climb a mountain. Once you're to the top, that's it. You wave to everybody, you put your flag, and you leave. And I kind of did that with my company in the photo industry. And I remember getting up the next day, and you would think you'd be like, oh, it's a relief. You signed the paper, you got the money, you did all sorts of things. I said to myself, you're unemployed. You're a loser.
Yeah, get back to work.
So, it was my intention after basically working 7 days a week for, 28 years, that I was going to take a little bit of time off and do some things. I wanted to move into New York City. I always sort of dreamed, single. I always sort of dreamed of having an apartment in New York City. In fact, New York Post did a feature on me and a few other people that moved back into the city at 50. They did a really interesting story why people do that. Of course, I'm glad I'm not there right now. But, so I went there and I said, I'm going to write my book. I had written at that point probably 50, 100 articles. They're all on my website, matsweetwood.com. And I said, I'm going to finish. I'm going to write my book. I'm going to do some consulting. I speak a lot. So it was sort of an opportunity from that place in New York to go do that thing. And so it's been a journey of doing that. I've consulted and helped many companies. I've coached many people. Mostly men, but, some women through divorce and through some tough things. I finished my book, Leader of the Pack, when speaking. And then the opportunity came, LUXnow came in front of me. They kind of found me out there, and it's an opportunity to do something which actually I couldn't believe nobody had done. So LUXnow is a marketplace, and marketplaces are the trend now in business.
Yep.
But there's no marketplace for luxury assets, for luxury cars, homes, and yachts. You have Airbnb for homes, but Airbnb, you can find $60 homes on Airbnb.
Mm-hmm.
You have Turo, which does it for all. You can buy an $18 cars on Turo or whatever, $30 cars on Turo. And you have BoatSetter, which does it for sort of a whole range of boats. But there's nobody focusing on the $50 billion luxury travel business, and nobody with a marketplace. So when they came with me the opportunity to be the CEO of this company, for me, it was like a wow. I got to sort of get out of my comfort zone, which is New York and New Jersey, because you could splash cold water on me at 4 a.m. and I can tell you where anything is instantly in my head in New York or New Jersey.
Wow.
So I got to move to Florida, come here, do something completely different. Migration, by the way, is actually very, very tricky, particularly when you've been in one place a long time, like where you don't know really where the best food store is, and you don't know anybody or anything or whatever, and you have to move. And it's a pretty interesting experience, which I've never done. I know a lot of people do it all the time, but for me, that was a comfort zone change for me.
Yeah, definitely.
So I came here, and we've been building this company, and we're very excited about building the company. We're doing really well. We have like $1 billion worth of assets on the platform. Hosts have put $1 billion worth of things. We were actually really, really going well, obviously, until COVID-19 hit, which of course killed the travel business. But we're already picking up, and things are already starting to go in a great direction. But anyway, so LUXnow was a really fantastic opportunity for me, and it was a really great chance to do something really different, really exciting, chance to do something that's going to go, really, really big. We think we're going to be the next big thing. People will be hearing about us very soon.
That's awesome. And that's just based on a U.S. base, or is it international also?
Right now, we have assets in Southeast Florida, which is really from like Miami to Palm Beach. We have assets in Los Angeles. We have assets in New York. We just added Mykonos, Greece, Havana, Cuba, and literally as we speak, we're adding inventory in Aspen, Colorado. So we are going to expand internationally. You see, it's very, very hard to find access to luxury. If you show up in a city and you say, hey, I want to rent a Lamborghini, it's actually very tricky to do. You don't know who's there. There's a lot of small independent places. I'm not saying that they're necessarily bad, but they're hard to find. You don't know what you're dealing with. You don't know the pricing. There's no marketplace. So you really have no idea what to do. You want to rent a luxury home, go find it. It's actually quite difficult to do. And the same thing with if you're in a port city with a yacht, sort of finding your way. We have an app, a very easy to use app. You just go on the app, you find all of those properties and location, and you can rent. It's actually very simple. We've provided an easy access to luxury. And once again, nobody is doing this, which is really pretty amazing.
Yeah, that's awesome. I gotta definitely try that out here in Los Angeles because there's definitely a lot of that. So I need
I
to
think you
jump
would
on
look
that.
really good. You look like a Ferrari guy to me. I think
Yeah,
we're going to put you in a Ferrari, right?
yeah, yeah, definitely. I think we need to do that for sure. Or when I go down to Miami too.
Yeah, yeah. Well, Miami, you got to do that. We'll take care of you too when you come down. You
Yeah,
spend enough money with us, we'll give you some really good concierge service. We'll get you in the club. We'll
yeah.
show you around a little bit. I can see you're gonna have a good
I'm
time.
gonna have a good time. No, that's good. So let's talk about your book. I think I know what inspired your book, The Leader of the Pack. Um, Yet give me, your inspiration with the, obviously, you said you left your job or you sold the company and you wanted to do some other stuff. But what drives you to do that? And let's talk about your book.
Um, for me, it was a question of I sat there after I sort of escaped the photo industry, which is really definitely an escape. Um, I said to myself, there's no way all the things that happened to me in my life could have happened for no reason. I really need to tell this story. The last few years, I was actually in my company. I started writing. I actually did it. I actually started writing as an attempt to build my personal brand. So I was an early adopter in social media. And when I transformed my company and we actually opened a camera store, we opened a camera store when all the other camera stores kind of were going out of business. And I reinvented the camera store model. I actually get credit for that in the industry. All the camera stores that run today basically run off some version of, a bunch of the concepts that I did to change that business model because it was really failing. I needed to market my product. And I started sort of seeing out there, I was looking at guys like Gary Vee and Richard Branson. And I'm like, wow, these guys, I don't even know what, okay, Richard Branson, we know a company he runs, but a lot of these guys, I don't even know what company they run, but I know them. And so I said to myself, I think I'm going to try to do that with my company. There's competition out there. We don't have a lot of money. It was a transition kind of time. I said, I'm going to try to build my personal brand. So I started talking about things, and I have this thing in the back of my mind. I have this crazy story of having to raise 5 kids. The mother walked out on us when the children were 18 months through 8 years old.
How was that? How many years ago?
Oh, that was in the mid 90s.
Gotcha.
Mid 90s. So my kids are all in their 20s and 30s.
Yeah.
I had this crazy story, Supreme Court case, crazy divorce, got custody of my children, had to raise them, crazy business, going in and out of business because of the technology and the business environment. We were a seller of film, right? So we were one of the largest sellers of film. That's not a good business to be.
No. Talk about overcoming
so
obstacles.
there was a lot of craziness that went on in my life. And to build my personal brand, when we opened this camera store, I started talking about myself. People used to call it narcissistic. Now it's sort of like a way to do, and that's what these guys do. They talk about themselves, they talk about business ideas, they talk about philosophy, and I started talking about that. And what I discovered was that when I started talking about fatherhood, single fatherhood, and what it was like to go through as a single father, and the kind of obstacles that are unique to our feelings, and how we feel in divorce, and the sadness and the loneliness, and all of the difficulties, and how that relates to running a business, and how the skills you learn as a parent help you in business, and how the skills you learn in business help you as a parent, and how you overcome these unbelievable obstacles along the way. I started writing about this stuff and talking about it. It got more attention than my business and anything else. So I started writing articles. I was writing for the Good Men Project and Huffington Post and all these places. They all picked up my articles because really not too many people were doing it at that time. And so after I sold my company, I'm sitting there. I had written, 50 articles, and there's many business articles too. I write for Entrepreneur magazine. I do a lot of business stuff. I said, let's write a book. This story needs to be told. I have an audience. People are definitely interested. I wrote a book. It took me a couple of years because I threw away the first copy. It was not good. I did a lot of stuff along the way. Ended up being a success, really big success. If you go out there, you'll see there's 125 5-star reviews on the thing. It was #1 in self-help books. And it's a really transformational book. And almost weekly, I get people writing me, telling me the book has changed their life. So the book for me was a story that needed to be told. everybody thinks that they have a story in their life, and many, many people do, that's worth telling. But for me, the story, it's not, and don't think that like when you come on a show like this, I just want to say this for the record. I'm not plugging the book because I make money off the book. Anybody who's ever written a book, unless you're a famous person, you don't make money off the book.
Right.
You're better off working at Starbucks than writing a book, okay? Because it comes with health insurance.
Yeah.
Right? The pay per hour is not, not there. The book is written as your business card, as your manifesto, as what you're about. It allows people to have insight into you and for you to pass information to people that is, going to be valuable to them. And for me, that's the most rewarding thing about the book, because if you read the reviews and I can share some of the things people write, it changes their lives. It gives them a new perspective on how to overcome things, on how you find the strength within yourself and the methods you use to overcome whatever it is that you're facing in your life.
Yeah.
So for me, it was sort of a life journey that led me to writing the book. It was almost impossible not to. I had success in writing. I was blogging. I was using the writing and the talking about this and the speaking about this to build my company. I built an audience. And so the book was almost, in my case, a natural, outcoming of that.
Yeah, and I definitely agree with you. I mean, I have, when I wrote my first book, I said, to be is like, I'm not going to become rich from this. It's really more to be able to put out some content, some information. Like you said, is my branding, my business card. And I also did it for the purpose of self-accomplishment, right? I wanted to do something for myself to say, hey, I did a book, whether one person or 20 people buy the book. It wasn't so much about that. It was more about, I wanted to feel good about the fact that I actually did it.
I really like you saying that and I really appreciate you admitting that, because I think that's true for me too. I'm sitting there like I'm a guy who's got a PhD, but okay, it's a different level when you're an author, right? And you're an author, right? And nobody can ever take that
away from you, right? Exactly.
Right. I mean, if you're an author and you rent one of our Ferraris, the girls are going to be all over you. Okay.
I definitely cannot do that. Yeah, no, definitely. And so I think that's crucial. The other thing you mentioned is you're like, there's no reason why I went through all this, or there's got to be a reason that I went through all this. Do you believe that things happen for you or to you?
I think that the answer is both. I do believe in free will. Okay. I mean, right now I can choose to go do something very, very bad or very, very good. Nobody's stopping that. But I think that God steers the ship. In other words, he looks at you and he says, Cesar, you're not at your full potential yet. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to push you there. Now, whether you choose to quit or do it, that's up to you. But I'm going to do things to you, both good and bad, that are going to get you to that point, because I love you. And that's really what I want to happen for you. And in retrospect, that's what happened to me. I was a little boy, and having to raise 5 kids on my own under very difficult circumstances, that turned me into a man. And I wouldn't have written a book that helped people, and I wouldn't have written 200 articles, and I wouldn't be a speaker and talking about these things and all of these things, and running business and helping people and just being a better person myself, if God hadn't kicked my ass. So, I just think the answer is both. It's both. I mean, you have free will, but God is there, or whatever. Even if you're not a believer in God, I don't want to turn this like make it a religion. It's not a religious thing. People.
The universe, whatever you believe in, and I do believe
the universe, right? The universe. I'll say it. The universe pushes you. Okay. Yeah,
exactly. Now, can you share some of the challenges that you overcame as a single dad? Because I believe that you often hear about single moms, and obviously giving them credit, there's a lot of those, yet you hardly hear about single dads raising 1, 2, let alone 5 kids, and being able to do all the things you were doing. Like, I can only imagine, right? So can you give us some of the challenges and some of the things that you did, the tweaks or changes you did to overcome that?
This is really, in some respects, one of the most relevant topics, and I very much appreciate you asking that question. And I've been on 50 podcasts, and I don't think anybody has asked that question. And in some respects, that is the most relevant question. So first, let me give you a stat. over 25% of all single parent households are headed by men. And that is a mind-blowing statistic, because when you ask people intuitively, they're like, it's 95%, 98% single moms. Well, that's not exactly the case. Wow. There's a lot of single dads out there. And I think in the era of the Me Too movement, now I don't know if the Me Too movement has much legs left given the current political circumstances and the things that are going on. Right. But in the scope of the Me Too movement, we don't want to, the society is not interested in discussing moms that end up doing bad things and the fathers end up with the children for sort of, I mean, sometimes look, God sadness, mothers pass away and fathers are left, of course we understand that, or there's circumstances, but, mental illness is out there and evil is out there, and women can be that way just like men can. And the story of fathers who are really not even considered. I mean, when politicians get up and they say, we have to pass this program, they don't never say single parents. They always say single moms. And as a single dad, I think one of the most painful things that I faced was I was in a small town in New Jersey, relatively small town, affluent town. That's where I was raising my kids. And when my wife left, she left, okay? I didn't make her leave. She left her kids. All right. Yeah. There was a general feeling, not everybody, but a general feeling, and it was in the school system too, that there's no way a mom would leave her kids unless I did something to her. So I would sit there and they would look at me and they would look at my kids and they would be like, no, there must be something wrong with him. He's probably violent. He's probably a bad guy. He probably tricked her. He did all of these things. And it was very painful you're going through this. There was no support system. You imagine these groups with single moms. They're on the internet all the time by Facebook groups all over the place. I don't know of any for single dads. I try to start one, but dads don't talk to each other. Just let you know. I had something called the Man Up Project. And it was not a very successful online endeavor. So I think that there's very, very little support for men who go through this, very little. Nobody wants to hear about men. It's kind of one of the reasons why I wrote the book. Nobody wants to hear about men and the pain and the loneliness that they go through as single parents. And that nobody wants to really hear about the stories of women who don't do the right thing and end up not doing the right thing by their children. This is not something that society, Hollywood features. In fact, Hollywood, for all of their liberalism, focuses still on the concept that dads are stupid, right? You still see this. It goes through movies all the time, and it's actually, it's not painful. I mean, I don't care. They're stupid anyway, but, you watch this. So for me, it's sort of that you're a non-existent person in our society. We don't really have any thought about you. You don't really exist. And we definitely don't want to hear you complaining about women. In fact, we're even in a different time now, where if I just said the things that I said back in the 90s and early 2000s, you and me would have gotten hate mail. How dare you say that about women? How dare you say women take care of the children? You're complaining. You're doing all of these things. Today, it's a little bit different. People understand that there are single parents and so on. But when I did it, it was a very, very difficult time to do it. No support. People shunned you. They actually shunned my kids.
Wow.
Because they thought they were coming from a broken home, but not, when it's a single mom, sympathy goes out to the kids. When it's a single dad, in some cases there was, sympathy like that, where it's like, gee, but the sympathy was actually negative. Because the sympathy was, the poor kids lost their mom, and therefore they're not being taken care of by a nurturing person. And my book is all about how a dad can be a nurturing person too. It's one of the themes of my book. It wasn't that way at first, but I learned to be that way from a dad's perspective, not a mom's perspective, from a dad's perspective. And I get to spike the football. You know why I get to spike the football? Because my 5 adult kids are all super successful. They went to top universities. They're all doing amazing things in their lives. We're all close to each other. We all talk to each other. They have successful relationships. So I call that spiking the parenting football at the end.
I love that.
To answer your question, it was very difficult. And I think to some extent today, being a single dad also is difficult. Not as difficult as when I was there, but maybe it carries a stigma today of being a little bit weak. I don't know.
Yeah.
Or something like that. I don't know. I'm not in that mode anymore, but I do talk to single dads. Particularly, they read my book and they thank me and they say, "Oh my God, thank you for writing that. Finally, somebody writing about what we've been through."
Yeah, no, and I got to give you credit for that. I mean, it's not easy to raise, again, one kid, even on a relationship, mom and dad together, let alone 5 kids by yourself. And then being able to, like you mentioned, being able to give them the ability to have a successful life, to be successful in their own careers. That takes a lot. And definitely, the ones that are listening, make sure that you pick up the book, get some nuggets, get some ideas, and go check that out, because definitely that's going to give you that foundation, right? So that's amazing. Now, obviously, you've been very successful throughout your years, through those ups and downs. What is one thing that you would say the people that are listening to us or watching us, that even going through life, that journey called life, that vehicle, there's going to be ups and downs. Yet, what is your advice in terms of keep pushing forward or not giving up, or even ideas on that? Because sometimes people tend to just give up so easily and not continue to push forward.
So giving up, in my mind, is a function of, it can be a sign of depression, obviously, but giving up, and I'm talking about real depression. I'm not just saying, gee, I'm depressed today.
Right. Yeah, definitely.
But I think in general, the thing that guided me was sort of something I said to you earlier, which was, it's the drive for success, or to say it in reverse, to just not be a failure. And I am a firm believer that success is within everybody. One of the biggest keynote speeches I give really is centered around that, finding success. And I think that if you want something badly enough, and this is something that I say to myself, almost as part of my daily affirmation, I just say to myself, how badly do you want it? If you want something badly enough, you're going to make it happen. You're going to do whatever it takes. This is within everybody. And when someone says to me, I can't do something, I always say, well, it's probably, look, if I tell you that I want to play for the NBA, okay? I'm a 5'10", middle-aged Jewish guy, okay? There's not many of us in the history of the NBA, but okay, you know what I'm saying. I'm not applying this. I'm applying this in reality.
Yeah.
So if there's something that you want, if your business is in trouble, you're having trouble with your marriage, you're having trouble with your children, if you focus on it and say to myself, I am going to solve this problem, I am going to overcome this no matter what. It's going to be my sole purpose. I will not leave this earth until I do it. You're going to accomplish it. I was giving a talk one time in New York at an employment event. I was actually talking to the gathering were Ivy League graduates. They were basically management level, vice president level, middle-aged people. All the common thread was they were all Ivy League graduates, Harvard, Penn, Columbia, whatever, in the room. And they were there to find out because they had been transitioned out of their jobs. There were 100 people in the room. And as part of my talk, I'm saying, if you want a job badly enough, you can have any career you want. You don't have to do it. You can have any career. And some woman, I remember there was a woman in the front row, and she was sitting there doing this. Like, if you talk, I'm sure you speak.
Yeah.
You speak. A lot of times the audience nods with you or they laugh. This woman is just sitting there shaking her head the whole time. So finally, I stop and I'm like, I look over, I see her name tag, Lisa. I'm like, Lisa. I go, you've been shaking your head at me the whole time. What are you objecting to something that I'm saying? She goes, you can't just be anything that you can't. We're at a point in our life. We've had our careers. I was in accounting, and I don't remember what she said. In accounting, and I did this thing. I said, you could be a doctor if you want. If you want badly enough, you can be a doctor. She goes, how can I be a doctor? I'm 48 years old, and I'm like, listen. I said, if you want to be a doctor, right now, what you can do, you have a graduate degree from, where is it? I think she said like Brown or Columbia. I said, you have a graduate degree from Columbia. So what I want you to do is I want you to spend the next year, and I want you to study for the graduate medical exam. Take the entire year and do that. Okay? How old are your kids? I asked her. Oh, they're all adult. They're all out. They're all out of college. So I said, you don't have any kids to take care of. It's just you, right? I said, you single? Yeah, no, I'm single. I said, so you don't even have a husband. Right? You're all by yourself. Okay, I started getting, I wasn't mean to her. Maybe I'm sounding mean now. And I said, so go, here's what I want you to do. If you want to be a doctor badly enough, I want you to study for the medical boards for 1 year. 1 year, that's all I want you to do. Okay, then what you're going to do is you're going to apply to medical school. You're going to apply to 10 medical schools. You're going to go visit those 10 medical schools. You're going to go speak to the dean of admission at every one of those schools because they're going to see you because you're a 48-year-old successful person. And you're going to convince one of them to put you in medical school. And then you are going to go to medical school for 4 years. You're going to work your ass off, and you're going to do this. And I said, and when you're 55 years old, you're going to be a doctor. And if you want that bad enough, you can make that happen right now. So don't tell me you can't do that. Yeah. You have the smarts, the ability, the situation, and everything.
Wow, I love that.
Right? So for me, that's really what it's about. For me, I had 5 little blonde-haired, blue-eyed kids looking up at me when they were really little, and they're like, Dad, what's next? Yeah. So my choice was to run and go to Hawaii and be a surfer and leave everybody or fix it. So I had to figure out how to solve this problem, how to solve the problems, because I didn't want my kids ending up homeless in jail, whatever. I loved them, and they depended on me. They didn't ask to be in this world, so whatever. You just do whatever it takes. I didn't sleep for 8 years, Okay. Yeah. That's where the hair went. Okay, so that's what it's about. So the answer to your question is the way you overcome things in life is you say to yourself, do I really want to overcome that? Because if I really want to overcome that, I am going to do whatever it takes. I don't care. Nobody's stopping me. I'm going to singularly focus on that. Now, of course, you can't have everything you want in life. You can't have 20 things like that. It's not humanly possible. But pick that one thing that you want to overcome, that you want to solve, devote all your energy, resource, everything to it, and you're most likely going to succeed.
Yeah. No, I love that. I really, really love that. So before I let you go, I have a couple more questions for you. Because you're giving us a lot of great information. So I want to know, I'm curious, do you have daily habits that you do every day to put you in a positive state of mind and just kind of continue to push forward?
I do.
What do you do?
I do. So for me, I always I think for me, the mornings are extremely important for me, even though I'm not a morning person. I actually wrote a article that went viral on why late to bed and late up actually makes me more successful. I wrote that article because I got pissed off at some influencer who said he gets up at 3 a.m. and goes and runs in Central Park. And I'm like, every 50-year-old guy's going to follow you and die in the park of a heart attack. So I wrote this thing. But for me, the morning routine is really good. When I kind of wake up, my mind is in mathematical mode. So that mode moment when you're half asleep in the morning? That for me is when I'm in the most calm. I have no distractions. There's nothing bothering me. And I tend to think about my day almost half subconsciously. And I don't force myself out of bed, really, unless, I have to. And I try to use that time to think through what it will take to be successful. I'm sort of half asleep. It's a habit that I do. When my eyes open, I thank God for giving me another day on earth. I get myself, and this is something that I think is a really good thing, is that, obviously we went through a period where we're working from home because of COVID-19 and everything, but I still follow the same routine, which is I get up and get ready for the day. There's no pajama time for me ever. When I get out of bed, everything I do gets me ready for the day, even if my day is going to be a Sunday watching football. I am dressed, ready to go in positive action mode, always. And I think that that's a really important mindset. It doesn't, and it's not about, I think this is a really interesting idea, and I'm going to take something from Judaism. In the Judaism, there's no such concept as fun. What does that mean, right? Like that's a little bit of what we're talking about. Jews have fun all the time. I see them dancing and partying and all that stuff.
I do.
What I mean by that is that you're never doing something in your life just for the sake of doing it. Just because it feels good or whatever. If you're doing something because it feels good, you should be doing it because it relaxes you. It gives you a mental break. There's always a purpose behind everything you do. And so that is my preparation all the time. So even if I'm going to go out and play in the softball league, why am I playing in the softball league? I'm playing in the softball league because it's good for my mind and my body. And that's the decision I made to do it, right? It's why a guy like me, I don't drink, I don't smoke, I don't do any of those things because they detract from the purpose of life. And so I think that sort of mindset is extremely important, is that you get up in the morning and you get ready for the day, ready to do only positive things for you. And so it's that mindset that I walk through all the time. I always want to be ready. I always want to look good, wear a proper shirt, dress properly, feel strong, be ready to literally from the time I get up. There's no sort of lolling around and doing that. If I want to then go choose to sit on the couch and watch the Sunday morning news shows, I can do that. But I'm still doing it alert, ready, sort of in that mode that today is going to be productive, even if it's just understanding what's going on in the world and understanding how that's going to apply to my company, LUXnow, or whatever it is. So that's really my daily affirmation. And then the second sort of big thing that I do is I am OCD organized. Everything is in my calendar, in my schedule. I keep track of everything. Everything's in the cloud. I know where everything is. I put everything back when it's done. These are habits that I learned when you're trying to take care of 5 kids and running business with 100 employees, that if you don't keep things in order like this, very, very orderly. So that's really it. Those are the things that will help you be successful. But that sort of mental state of putting yourself in ready mode all the time, 100% of the time, is the way to be.
Yeah, no, I love that. And then if people wanted to find more about you, where can they connect with you?
Okay, for me, it's very easy. I said before, I was an early adopter of social media. So my website is msweetwood.com, and my social handles are all at msweetwood, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, whatever, at msweetwood. So easy enough. And I do interact with everybody out there. I have a big following, but I still, when people write normal things, not crazy things, I tend to interact with them. So please, reach out to me. Certainly check out my book, Leader of the Pack. It's on Amazon. You also can get a link to it on my website, msweetwood.com.
Awesome. And then in terms of LUXnow, is there, if people wanted to maybe try that out, you just never know, how is there like on your website?
You can go to luxnow.com or go into the App Store or the Google Play Store. LUXnow, we have actually a fantastic app. I'm very, very proud of it. We're a technology company. So you'll see the app is really, really cool. We're very proud of it. So LUXnow, just grab the app and have fun.
Awesome. And the last question I have for you, and you've given us a lot of great tips. If you can give us one last tip of, let's say people are going through some sort of challenge, and for them to be able to overcome that challenge, what would be that one advice that you will give them?
I think it's exactly what I said. They need to just decide that they, in a positive way, that they are going to overcome this challenge, a daily affirmation that they're going to get through it. There's something that says, this too shall pass.
Yep.
But it will pass faster if you are dedicated to solving it, and avoiding that sort of self-pity, because I did that for a long time. And that got me nowhere. And it was ultimately till I got over the woe is me and focused on saying, how badly you want to solve this, Matt? How badly? And once you do that, and you get over that, and you start taking positive steps every day, right? That's the tip. Every day, do something, even if it's just one thing, towards solving the problem. It's as simple as that. If you can do 2 and 3 and 4 and 5, of course, better. But every day, make it an affirmation that whatever you're causing your low point or whatever that is, you're going to do at least one thing to move yourself forward. And I promise if you do that and you say to yourself, I am going to absolutely overcome this, you will.
Yeah, I love that. How bad do you want it? And take positive steps every day. I really, really love that. Matt, thank you so much for being here. I really enjoyed our time together, and I really appreciate all the information you gave us.
Likewise, I really enjoyed the interview, and thanks for giving me a chance to talk to your audience.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you so much. And for the rest of you guys, please make sure you like, subscribe, share this podcast. Please comment on this podcast. Go check out Matt, his page, get his book. Please stay tuned to the next episodes coming up. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Cesar Espino, real estate investor, business coach, and consultant, and author of the book, You Can Overcome Anything, Even When the World Says No. My number is 424-501-6046. In my book, I talk about making the necessary changes to shift your mind for prosperity and certainty. Pick up your copy at Amazon. I also love helping families with their real estate and can purchase your house fast and all cash. Follow me on Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn. My number is 424-501-6046.
Thank you for having me today. I am so glad you tuned in to this podcast. You can find me at Spreaker.com, where you can like and subscribe And to learn more about myself and my services, you can find me at www.cesarrespino.com, or you can also find me at Facebook under Cesar R. Espino. Once again, thanks for joining me. I am looking forward to having you at the next episode, and know that you truly can overcome anything.